I'm glad that you mentioned Andy Reid because you've already said, champ, he's one of the greatest head coaches of all time. Where would you rank him as far as greatest head coaches of all time? Because there's Bill Walsh, there's Vince Lombardi, there's Bill Belichick, there is there's so many head coaches. But where would you rank Andy Reid?
I put him in the top five. I would put him in the top five. No, no particular order. It's for me. It's always been Bill Walsh, Joe Gibbs, Bill Belichick, Don Shula, and now Andy Reid. Like I said, in no particular order. And the reason why I put Joe Gibbs up there, he was able to win without a legacy quarterback. You know, if you really look at a lot of guys who are up there coaching, you know, they really have a legacy quarterback. You know, if you look at Andy Reid, he had Patrick Mahomes. If you really look at Don Shula, he had Bob Greasy. If you look at Bill Walsh, he had Joe Montana. If you look at Bill Belichick, he had Tom Brady. Joe Gibbs is the only one without a legacy quarterback. You know, he won with three different quarterbacks. One with Joe Theismann, one with Doug Williams, one with Mark Rippon. And let's not even forget the guys who got him to an NFC championship with. I mean, remember he went to an NFC championship with Jay Strader.
Mm.
He had a revolving door of quarterbacks and still won with him. So that's how come I put Joe Gibbs up there.
All right. Harrison, where would you rank Andy Reid as far as greatest head coaches of all time?
Yeah, I agree with Champ. I say top five.
He's got to be up there, man. I mean, and I told you, Chip, Andy Reid, if he wants to, I don't know how old Andy is. He's probably in his 60s or 70s, somewhere around there. But
Yeah,
if
I
he
think
really
so.
wants to, he could make a case, maybe better than Belichick. Because I told you, the reason why people love Andy Reid more than Belichick, in my opinion, champ, players love, they swear by him. Hardly not a negative word to say anything about Andy Reid. And the thing is with Andy, he has evolved with the times. It's easy for him to have a head coaching job in today's game. And you look at Bill Belichick now, to this day, unemployed, not even having a head coaching job.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you have to be able to evolve as a coach, to your point. And number two, the Patriot way, Andy Reid didn't have the benefit of having a Tom Brady when he was in Philadelphia to have the Patriot way. He wasn't as fortunate. You know, when your quarterback is taking pay cuts every single year, I mean, that sets precedent for teams. That sets precedent for your whole team, because you're going to be able to say, if your star defensive back comes to you and say, "Hey, I should be making top tier money as a defensive back, and I just made All Pro, I just made Defensive Player of the Year," you could always look at your quarterback and say, "Hey, I'm only paying him $20 million a year. He's not even the top 10 highest paid. How can I pay you and I ain't paying him yet?" So that's where that goes. That's where the Patriot way comes from. And not only that, you have to think about a lot of the guys that bought into the Patriot way were basically either Super Bowl hungry at a certain point in their career, or, you know, they were drafted by Bill Belichick. So, and some of those guys was by, and people don't want to give this, don't want to talk about this. Before Bill Belichick ever took over, as far as the Patriot way was concerned, a lot of those players were drafted by Bill Parcells. William McGinnis I believe he was drafted by Bill Parcells. Drew Bledsoe, Bill Parcells. Lawyer Malloy, Bill Parcells. A lot of those guys at the beginning of Bill's career was Bill Parcells guys, not necessarily Bill Belichick guys. You know, William McGinnis and Ty Law, a lot of those guys went to that 96 Super Bowl and faced off against the Packers long before Bill Belichick ever became head coach. So, and I don't think that's talked about as much as it should be. You know, those beginning Super Bowl years, some of those guys were Bill Parcells guys, not necessarily guys Bill Belichick went out and got. So I think that's always been left out of the story as well. Because before Bill Belichick had the Patriot way, it was the Bill Parcells way. Where did the Bill Belichick come from? Bill Parcells. So it's easy for you to pass that down to players when you come from that similar system. And you're drafting players and taking flyers on low round guys. A lot of guys that Andy Reid draft, they're high round guys. If you look at Patrick Mahomes, he traded up to get him. If you look at Travis Kelce, he's a great tight end. If you really look at a lot of the players that he's drafted, Tyreek, a lot of guys, they're higher round guys. These guys, a lot of guys, Bill Belichick was really taking flyers on and really installing them in the system, and they were really system guys. These guys that Andy Reid had have proven they can succeed outside of the system. Look at Tyreek Hill. Look at Kareem Hunt. Look at a lot of the guys he drafted up there in Philadelphia. They proved they can succeed outside the system. So, yeah, he didn't draft just system guys that fit their system. He drafted guys based on their talent. I believe
LaShawn McCoy,
LaShawn
Deshaun
McCoy,
Jackson, Jeremy Maclin.
Yes, those guys succeeded outside of Andy Reid. And so, you don't have a lot of guys that Bill Belichick drafted that you can necessarily say he succeeded outside of Andy Reid. Excuse me, he succeeded outside of Bill Belichick. You don't have a lot of guys that can say that, or that you can say think that would have succeeded outside of the Bill Belichick system. I don't think Julian Edelman, they call him Jules. I don't think Jules would have been successful outside of that system. Right. The
only one we know, champ, is Wes
Welker. Is Gronk. I'll say
Gronk, and then Wes Welker, because he was productive not only in New England but also in Denver when he had Peyton Manning.
Yeah. But outside of those two guys, you got to ask yourself. I'm saying on the offensive side.
Oh yeah,
because we all know that those defensive guys, they weren't no joke. Willie McGinnis, all of those guys weren't no joke. Let's just put that on out there. But as far as on the offensive side of the ball, I don't think a lot of those Patriot players would have been as successful.
Oh, no. But again, it just tells you though that you're just gonna have to get ahead with the times, man. Like the Patriots way. It doesn't work with a lot of other coaches who've tried the Patriots way. It didn't work out with Josh McDaniels. It didn't work out with Romeo Crennel. It didn't work out with Matt Patricia. So I just think for Belichick, unfortunately for him, he doesn't have enough leverage. He has 6 Super Bowls, but at the same time, in the words of Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? So what is he?
Isn't it safe, PSP, to compare Bill Belichick to kind of like Tom Landry, this modern day Tom Landry?
I don't think it's that crazy to make that type of comparison.
Because when you really think about Bill Belichick, you think about the Patriot way, and when you go back and think about Tom Landry, everybody talks about the system. So I don't think that's far of a stretch when you compare Tom Landry to Bill Belichick. The only difference between the two is the Super Bowl ring count.